So we're in the middle of Eis Daled, where there's a dot where it says Ella. The Maamar said two explanations about why we say that a nes hamelubish beteva has a higher sherish than a nes that's l'mayla min hateva. One explanation was every nes is Eirin Seif HaBligvul. It's the infinite koyach of godliness. If a nes is melubish beteva, so you have a combination of bligvul, of infinite, with gvul, with finite. The only way that can happen is when its sherish is atzmus of the Eibishter that could be even in gvul. Mashenkin a nes shalamayel me'ateva is only the bligvul. It's Eirin Seif HaBligvul. It's not atzmus. That was the first explanation. The second explanation, why is a nes hamelubish beteva greater in one sense than a nes shalamayel me'ateva? That because a nes hamelubish beteva shows the control of the Eibishter in a greater measure. You see how the Eibishter has control over the teva itself. He can run nature the way he wants without shattering nature, without pushing it aside. And now, in order to explain the difference between these two explanations, so we were explaining what it says in the Akiva, that from nature itself, one is also able to recognize the greatness of the Eibishter. When we say the greatness of the Eibishter, what we're saying is from nature, not only we're able to recognize the existence of the Eibishter. Obviously, if you see nature, you see there's a God who's running nature. But from nature, we're able to recognize the infiniteness of the Eibishter, of Hashem. How? Because there's many aspects of nature, even though by nature is by definition the koyach hagvul, it's finite. Every aspect of nature comes from the chayos, from the godly force that's measured out in accordance with every nivra, and therefore it's a measured chayas, it's a finite chayas. Nevertheless, there's many aspects of nature that have continuity, that are permanent, that are infinite, that have in it the element of bligvul. How does teva have bligvul? Because when I think into nature, when I look into it, I see it's also connected, it also originates from the infinite koyach of Hashem. So nature also reveals not just the godly force that comes in a measured manner, but the koyach habligvul that leads to certain aspects, certain elements of infiniteness. That we said that nature never changes, that the heavenly bodies remain intact just the way they were created, kayam be'ish, and the earthly bodies are kayam b'min. The species remain with this continuity. So nature also reveals the koyach habligvul. Now we're up to Ella. So this is what the Akiva says. This was quoted from the Akiva, which is one of the Rishonim. Ella, however, although nature has the same advantage in a sense as a nes shows us the bligvul of the Eibishter, the limitless power of the Eibishter that's higher than nature, and therefore it goes against what nature would do. Nature itself also shows the limitless power of the Eibishter. Ella, however, there's a difference. Although it's true that this is revealed by nature, teva, nature reveals the infiniteness of Hashem, but in order to recognize this, in order to see and understand through nature how there's a infinite, there's a koyach habligvul of Hashem that's bringing about the continuity in nature, the permanence, tzarich lehisbeininus. In order to recognize that, you have to really think deeper into it. The first reaction, if I look at nature, what I seem to be seeing is something that's independently existence. It's the laws of nature. Nature, in a superficial way, conceals godliness. It takes away the awareness, and for sure it takes away the awareness of koyach habligvul, of an infinite koyach of Hashem. It's only when I look deeper into it, when I think about it, when I contemplate, 1 second, this is nature, but how does nature have elements of continuity? It's only from a deeper thinking and a deeper contemplation that I'm able to realize from teva, from nature, this koyach habligvul.
When you talk about that, I understand what you just said, you don't even think about it, but you won't have a clue unless you actually study it and find detail. Your thinking is not going to help anything, because you have no clue what you're really looking at. You look under a microscope, that's for sure. I've had the science background. It's even much greater than no one can ever dream. A person normally, say, there's nothing, he wouldn't even know how to think, what to think.
Wait, we brought over here very basic examples. Said, look at the fact that nature doesn't diminish, it doesn't weaken. The laws of nature have this continuity. Gravity didn't lose its pull over the last 5,000 years. What?
A normal person wouldn't know anything about it.
What do you mean?
He just looks, all he can do is what he sees.
Right.
If he doesn't study and find detail.
What do we have to study? We know my grandfather dropped a cup and it fell just the same speed as it happened by me and his grandfather. So that for this particular calculation, that's all we need. You're right, you're talking about much more complex ideas.
Then you really see the infinite.
But there's something basic that we're seeing just from this. How do you have continuity? Nature, by definition, should be diminishing. It should be weakening. How come we didn't see any weakening?
Why should it be good?
Because anything
Oh, yes, the law of entropy. Yes, everything always changes. Yes.
always
Time
weak.
goes on, yes.
Everything always weakens. Anything that's finite, by definition, has to weaken because whatever it was made with is a battery has to get weak. Everything in the world.
And we don't see that.
Nature, that's not happening. So we have a basic calculation that shows us something doesn't make sense. There must be an infinite koyach of Hashem here.
Good, thank you.
But even this, it takes contemplation. We have to make that calculation. A person doesn't walk in the world and say, wow, I see the infinite koyach of Hashem. He has to stop and think and and do the equation. Whereas, if we see a miracle, if we see shinui hateva, if we see something that defies nature, that goes against nature, royim miyad, you see instantly, gam beli his beinus, you don't need any contemplation. I don't have to think about it and make any calculations, and I immediately recognize shezeba, where does the miracle originate from? Where does it come from? May eirein say, from the koyach of Hashem, from the infinite koyach of Hashem, she'einei mugbo begeder ha'elam, that's not limited by the rules of the world, and therefore he can change nature. So here we see, despite the fact that nature also is able to reveal to us this bligvul of Hashem, but nature needs an extra condition. I have to focus. I have to think about it. But if someone experiences a nes, or learns about a nes, or witnesses a miracle, the miracle doesn't need its beinus. Right away, no matter who you are, he sees, wow, this is a bligvul of Hashem. Now, v'oid maila, another advantage that's there, benisim legabe anhagas teva. The first advantage is a basic advantage. Teva shows you something if you listen, if you pay close attention. And a nes shows you the same thing without any precondition from the person. You don't have to pay attention. You're going to get the message. You can't avoid the message. Another advantage in nisim legabe anhagas teva. There was once a famous Israeli thinker and writer, and his pen name was Achadam. I forget right now what his actual name was. And he was very very knowledgeable, but very anti-religious, very big apikeris. And he was a relative of the Rebbe Rashab. And he once visited the Rebbe Rashab. And they spoke and they conversed. And at the end of the meeting, so the Chassidim went to each of them and they asked them what their impressions of the meeting was. So they asked him, what does he think about the Rebbe Rashab? He said, paraphrasing a term in Chazal, Chazal say about Nimrod, he was Yedeya es Riboinai u'meskaven limrid beit. It says he knew Hashem and he deliberately rebelled against him. He said about the Rebbe Rashab, he's Yedeya es ha'elam. He knows what the world is. He knows what it's all about. U'meskaven limrid beit. He intentionally fights it, rebels against it. Then they asked the Rebbe Rashab. They asked the Rebbe Rashab, what do you say about this Achadam? He says, this person, even if he would be present by Kriyas Yamsov, the biggest miracle, he would still remain fervent in his apikorsis, in his non-belief. So there's a person who that could see a miracle and still not believe, but that takes a lot of talent and a lot of practice probably and a lot of preparation, decision.
Qualitative self-perception.
Yeah. But a person, naturally, when you see a nes, it has that advantage that you don't need any preconditions. You see it's Erin Seif HaBligvul.
You could also say the reverse, by the way. Say in the sense of, if you're forced to work on something, it could cause you to believe more. Whereas if you see something for an instant...
True. What you're saying is, so in nature, if I did have this baininess, if I put the effort and the focus, then the result will be more lasting than the instant. True. But I have to get that. I have to come to the precondition. Another advantage in nisim, in miracles over teva, and what the nes shows me over what teva shows me. Shakayach ein seif habligvul. This kayach habligvul, this infinite kayach of Hashem, shemizgala, that I'm able to recognize, that becomes revealed, al yedei hatmidiyus shaban hagas hateva, through the continuity that you see in nature. Gamla achrei has beininus, even after the person focuses and thinks about it, and he's seeing a certain high root, a high sherish, a high force of godliness, but it's not such a high force. Hu melubish be'inyan hagvul. He's seeing that level of the infinite force of Hashem, the way it connects, the way it's enclosed, the way it comes together with Gvul. Not the level of the infinite of Hashem, the way it is for itself. So when this Bli Gvul comes and connects with Gvul, it's descending, it's lowering itself. It's kind of like a little bit of a watered down form of the Bli Gvul. What are we seeing when even after I'm being mizbeinin, I'm thinking deeply, I'm focusing on nature, I'm seeing the way shahanahagas atava, the laws of nature, which are inherently gvul, it's something finite, that's what nature is, that's the definition, that's the meaning of nature, and we see that ein la shinei v'hefsek, it has continuity, it doesn't weaken, it doesn't diminish. So I'm seeing how it has the koyach ha'ein seif habli gvul, but that kayach ein and seifa bligvul is coming bislapshus, it's connected, it's being enclosed in these garments of gvul. Vayidei hanisim, when you're seeing a miracle, besides that the miracle doesn't take his beininus, the level of elikus, so to speak, that's being realized is a higher level. It's nimshach, what's being shown, what's being drawn down is gilui eirin seifa bligvul atzmei, the infinite level of Hashem, shalamayla mi'eslapshus bigvul, as it is, that doesn't come down and become connected and related with gvul, the way it is higher than the forces of gvul, and therefore it pushes away nature, it alters the nature. So we have two advantages in Nisim. One is the fact that Nisim are showing the Eirin Seifa Bligvul without any preconditions. Everyone sees it instantaneously. The second advantage is that the level of Elikos, the level of Eirin Seifa Bligvul that's revealed, that we see through the Nes, is a higher level. It's the way this Bligvul of Hashem is for itself, it remains higher and aloof from the Gvul. Ella Shafal Pikei, now we're going to go back to the other side. The second advantage in Nisim also contains within it a disadvantage. So we're going a whole time back and forth into the different Nisim and the Nisim. Afal Pikei, Mitam Za'atzmei, this very explanation that we used to show the advantage of a Nes over Teva, also has in it an advantage of Teva over a Nes. Yesh Maila, because of this reason, because the Nes is Eirin Seifa Bligvul, a higher level, the way it is for itself, the way it doesn't descend and connect itself and become related with Gvul, because of this there's a Maila, an advantage, Ba'gilui de Kayach Ein Seif, in the revelation of Kayach Ein Seif, of the Bligvul of Hashem, Shem Mizgala, the way it becomes revealed, the way we see it, Al Yidei HaTmidiyos Shaban Hagas HaTeva, through the continuity in nature, Legabe Gilui Ein Seif Shaydei Nisim. Because of this reason itself, Teva, what we see through nature, has an advantage. What's the advantage? The Inyan HaBligvul Kimei Shemizgala Yidei Nisim, what we're seeing through a Nes, the Bligvul of Hashem that's being shown to us through a miracle, Shidud HaTeva Da'elam, that shatters the laws of nature, Einei Shayach LaHa'elam. It doesn't show us the way the world itself is connected to the Bligvul of Hashem, because we're saying the level of Bligvul, the way it's above the world, the way it doesn't connect with the world, the way it's higher than being mislabish in the garments and the vessels of the world. So we're not seeing the way it becomes connected to the world, the way the world itself is tied, is affiliated with Eirin Seifa Bligvul. Whereas, when we see the continuity in nature, the Eirin Sefer Bligvul that's revealed through recognizing the permanence in nature, Mizgala, what we're seeing then is, in one sense, something much deeper. Shegam chayes ha'elam gvul hu kasher Eirin Sefer Bligvul. Here we're seeing not just that there is an existence, a kayach that's infinite, a force of Hashem that's higher than the world, but we're seeing that that's the essence of what the world is. That nature itself, deep down, look deep down into nature, you see nature itself is rooted in Eirin Sefer Bligvul, as a manifestation of Eirin Sefer Bligvul. So on the one hand, in the nisim, in the miracles, you're seeing a higher level of this godly force. But the teva, although it reveals the godly force, the way it's enclosed in the world, because of that it teaches us something much deeper, that the world itself is not separated, is not detached from the Eirin Sefer Bligvul. And now we're going to explain how could this be. World and Eirin Sefer Bligvul, just those words are two opposites. How could I say the world itself, when the Eibishter decided to create a world, says the pasuk, Bereshis bara Elokim. How did he go about that? Through Elokim, through tzimtzum, through concealing godliness. Because godliness and world don't go together. The Eibishter had to make a tzimtzum, so to speak. It's described in Eitz Chaim, like he's going to say, to push aside the Eir Eliki, to push aside the godliness, to make room, to make space, that there should be a world in that space that's, so to speak, devoid of godliness. How could we now say that the laws of nature are Eirin Sefer Bligvul? Always we say in Chassidus that to create the world, the Eibishter had to leave only the Koyach HaGvul, the watered down, so to speak, the Koyach HaGvul of godliness. That's the Koyach that could be present together with the world.
You didn't say devoid of godliness.
What?
You said it's a dumbed down.
Devoid of the revelation. Oh, so what does it mean it's down? That's, so to speak, the finite force of godliness. Because that's what's in the world. And, so for him, he's fine. But now we're saying the world itself is connected with the infinite force. How do they go together? Now we're going to explain with some of the deepest inyanim in Chassidus. V'yesh levarza. So this itself we could explain. What's the rash? How does it work that the laws of nature are revealing? We could explain this al pi ma shekasa behemshech tafresh samach vav. In hemshech tafresh samach vav of the Rebbe Rashab in the Maamar, he says, how is this come to be? He says, Tzeischa be'anhagas hateva yesh inyan hatmidiyas. Where does this come from? What is in fact the explanation? How is there continuity in nature? Hagam sheteva hu me'achayis aleki shemelubish b'nivraim. The question we already mentioned briefly, and the answer very briefly before. The laws of nature, the force of nature comes from the finite force of godliness, so to speak. It comes from that level, from that godly chayus that's in the nivraim. That by saying it's in its melubish and nivraim, that means it's a watered down, it came down to be able to fit with each individual creation. Like we said, in order to define, to explain a chayis aleki, a godly force that's coming in accordance, conforming with each nivra, it means that it was watered down. It came down, it became a limited chayis. Infinite means that each nivra would have to, all nivraim, all creatures would have to be the same. So how could I say on the one hand that the chayis aleki that's in nivraim is mugbal, and at the same time that this chayus gives nature an element of continuity, of permanence, which is an expression of Eirin Sefer Bligvul? So the Rebbe Rashab explains, Lefi she'sheresh hachayus hamelubish b'nivraim, says although it's true that this godly life, sustenance, chayus that's in nivraim, is a chayus mugbal, it's a chayus aleki that comes in a finite form, but where does that itself originate from? What's the sheresh of this chayus that's in Nivram? Hulay me hakelim kiyim me eir hakav. The whole Seder Hishtalshalos says in Eitz Chaim, the Eibishter, in order to create the world, he made a tzimtzum. He pushed aside the Eirin Seif in order to leave room for the world. And into that empty space, so to speak, he brought in the kav. The kav was literally, it's a line. There was a new measured down, watered down force of godliness that should be the source of everything that exists in all of the worlds, a designated chayas that's in accordance to what every single world and sphera and neshama and creation in the world needs.
How is that related to Kav versus Ein Sof? What's the difference?
Ein Sof, by definition, is infinite. That's the force of Hashem that's not designated, that's not measured out for every world. And therefore, Ein Sof precludes the existence of the world.
So it's before the Kav.
Right. The Ein Sof was what, so to speak, was pushed aside to make a space, and into the empty space came, the Kav is like a ruler.
So did that come from the Ein Sof?
The Kav came from the Ein Sof. We're going to say that more detail now, although it's very, yeah. So he says, so in this empty space, very generally speaking, so there's the Kav, there's the godly light, there's the Kalim, there's the various vessels in every world, in every level. There's the vessels that channel it, that format it, in order that that this air should be ultimately the blueprint for the world that we live.
Those are just come from the Kav.
The Kalim?
Yeah. Where did it come from?
The Kalim come from also, from the Ein Sof we'll see, they created two general, everything is made up of these.
You said in the empty space, it's all left. You can
Oh.
still put Kalim.
Correct. Now I'm telling you, there's also Kalim. There's two forces. Yeah.
So let's make it clear. We've got the Ein Sof, from that comes a whole bunch of things. Kav, Kalim, and everything else.
Yeah, it's just like
That's fine.
a person, right? A person has in him two parts. What is a person? We have a neshama and a guf. Same thing in every level. In Atzilus, there's a force of kindness. Now we're with the sphere of Malchus, the sphere of Seimer. Malchus is a force, a godly force, that gets its exact format as being an expression of Malchus through being in a keli, in a vessel that channels it and gives it the specific form. In every level, from the highest level to the lowest level, the breakdown is into these two opposing forces of the air, the fuel, so to speak, and the keli, which is the vessel that channels it and formats it and gives it its...
Okay, but I have to know the fine points here. Let's go again. The Ein Sof comes a whole list of things. One is the Kav, into that space. Number two is a whole bunch of Kalim.
Yeah, but to be more precise, which we're going to learn, where do the kalim come from?
Exactly.
What are the kalim doing?
This is besides the Kav now. We're not talking about the
Right. There's the kav. There's always two general. What are the kalim?
into the space.
Wait. Before where the what are the kalim doing?
What they're doing, one at a time. First, where do they come from?
Listen first. What are they doing?
Well, we know what they're doing.
What? They're channeling. How are they channeling? By hiding a large part of the air and letting only the part that we want to come forth. Just like if you're watching a film, so there's a light, there's something that blocks most of the light, so you just see the part that you want to see.
The Tzimtzum has to be greater
Wait.
than the Ein Sof even, to be able to hold it back.
Exactly, 100%. Correct, that is true. The Tzimtzum is the force also that's the root of the Kalim. The Ein Sof is the root of the Kav, which is the air. That's what Ein Sof is. Now, these two general forces in every level, the Kalim, which holds back the air at every level, channels it, formats it, just like the body does to the neshama. That's the Kalim.
The source.
The Kalim, their source is the Tzimtzum.
Yeah, I know that. Where's the source of that?
Of what?
The Tzimtzum, the Kalim. Where's the source?
Of the Tzimtzum?
Okay, let's go one at a time. The Tzimtzum.
Okay, so the Tzimtzum is one of the forces of Hashem. And this Ein Sof that was before everything, Hashem has two forces. He has a force of expression and a force of withholding. The Tzimtzum is the force of withholding of Hashem.
So the source of the Tzimtzum is the Ein Sof, not the Kav.
No, the Kav and the Tzimtzum are both, after the Ein Sof was pushed aside, now into the empty space came these two.
Where did it come from?
They came both from the Keiches of Hashem that are before, that preceded the
Before the
Tzimtzum.
Ein Sof?
That are, the Ein Sof contains with it two separate
So it
forces.
comes from the Kav.
Right, correct, yeah. Yeah, but really specifically, if we break it down, the Ein Sof is defined as the infinite force of Hashem. Really, infinite means because he also has the ability to be finite. And that's correct.
So I'm making it clear that the Ein Sof has all this infinite ability. From that comes the Kav, the Tzimtzum, and then the Kalim as well. All from that source.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to discuss in this paragraph.
Breakout. The Tzimtzum, right? The Tzimtzum is it's something apart from its regular way of operation.
Right. There was once a bacher who was in Yechidus, and the Rabbi used to discuss with bacherim what they're learning. He asked them questions. This bacher came into Yechidus, and the Rabbi asked him what he's learning in Chassidus. And the bacher wasn't so familiar with what he's learning in Chassidus, and he was on the spot. He needed an answer, so he said to the Rabbi, he's learning about Eirith and Kalim. Because that's what everything is there, from the highest level to the lowest level. Okay, so we'll, I guess, continue.